this is a very, very complicated situation, and it's bigger than Boston, but Boston does have most of the stops that are affected, most of the residents who are affected, and most of the destinations that people are trying to come to, even from outside the city. And so our teams under Chief of Streets, Yasha Franklin Hodge, and our Chief of Community Engagement, Brianna Malor, and Chief of Communications, Jessica Pierre, and all of our teams, I think I saw Maria in the room too, Chief of Equity and Inclusion, Maria Angelica Solis Cervera, have been basically dropped everything else, all hands on deck, to try to supplement and support outreach about what is happening, planning so that the alternative routes will fit our streets and can move faster wherever we can make it possible on Boston's roads, and also the communications mechanisms so that we can keep adjusting what is happening in real time as new issues pop up, as we identify places that we can fix and keep improving. And so this is going to be a long 30 days that is going to start Friday night at 9 p.m. with the Orange Line train coming down. And we are going to work to make sure that even within the 30 days, we keep getting better and identifying issues that we can quickly resolve in partnership with the MBTA to make sure that Boston can help support this. And we will have a new and improved, fixed, new trains and safer tracks and safer experience for everyone afterwards. This is one of the communities that is most affected because the way the shuttle bus routes have been planned out to this point have tried to avoid downtown traffic so that they could keep going on very frequent intervals. Buses leaving the two endpoints of the Orange Line every 45 seconds or so, to have every few minutes at each stop a new shuttle bus coming. But there's concern that the downtown traffic could jeopardize all of that if the buses get stuck there. And so we've been pushing and working with the MBTA to come up with more creative solutions so that Chinatown and everyone going to Tufts and everyone in this downtown area have the service that you deserve and that you need and depend on even in the next 30 days. So I hear that there's some announcements we're going to be happy to hear tonight. I want to thank the entire team. I'm going to pass it over to all of my colleagues here to say a few words. I just want to apologize that I won't be able to stay for the whole time tonight. Chief Franklin Hodge and I have another set of engagements to get to, but we are working very hard, and so we are going to make sure that everything possible, morning till night, every little detail that we can look at, that we are, and please keep that feedback coming. And so I'll pass it to City Council President Ed Flynn.
Thank you, Mayor Lou, and to your team. And thank you to the MBTA for being here tonight, and to my colleagues in government as well, Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Murphy. I know the gentleman here is from Senator Lydia Edwards' office. I know Senator Nick Collins as a representative here as well. I have my staff is also here, Vanessa, Sophia, and Melissa. I have 3 women on my staff, and they all speak Cantonese and Mandarin. And those are the calls we've been receiving over the last week. What is the plan for Chinatown? What's happening in Chinatown? Is there going to be a bus in Chinatown? This document that I'm looking at now, this is in English. We need this document in Chinese. I was with Chu from ONS the other day. These young students here from YES came to visit us, and that's what they were asking us about the Orange Line. So what this community is looking for is this neighborhood wants to be treated with respect. This neighborhood wants to be treated with dignity. They want to have the same access as any other neighborhood does. This neighborhood is an immigrant neighborhood. A lot of seniors here, a lot of seniors that speak Cantonese only. We have a lot of persons with disabilities. We have a lot of BPS students. Thank you to Cynthia Suhu for hosting this event here at Josiah Quincy School. But we also have a lot of community college students as well. Bunker Hill Community College, Roxbury Community College is also on the Orange Line. The Urban College is right here, as is the dental program at Tufts. But let's work together. We'll work with the MBTA. We want to make sure that the residents here are treated fairly, are treated with respect. And we're going to keep advocating for all the constituents here in Chinatown and across the city as well. I want to say thank you to Mayor Wu. I want to pass it off to my council colleague, Councilor Erin Murphy.
Thank you, Councilor President Flynn, and also thank you, Mayor Wu. When we heard a few days ago about this closing, I do have to say, the mayor and all of her departments have been around the clock. I don't think they're sleeping. They know that every day things are changing and that we need to be ready. And I want to just shout out to Brianna Malore, and I know John Romano from ONS, and I know they already know that even though their days are already long, that over the next 30 or 40 days, they're gonna be in overdrive also. And the one thing I do want to just say is we can have all the plans, but if we're not communicating and letting the residents know, none of that's gonna matter. So I do believe our office and working with colleagues, and Council President Flynn has already had 2 hearings for us as councils talking to the MBTA, the Transportation Department, MassDOT. So making sure that we are up to date and things are changing. I know Mayor Wu already said they're changing daily, and as we're figuring out what bus routes are gonna work and which schools and which students are going to be affected, we have to make changes, and we're gonna be there supporting, and our office along with my council colleagues will be there supporting the residents, making sure that the city does not have to shut down during this. So thank you for being here, and I'll pass it off to my colleague here, Councilor Flaherty.
Councilor Murphy. And join Mayor Wu and Council President Flynn and my colleague, Councilor Murphy, in partnership, obviously, and willing to work, obviously, with the T, but to make sure that the Chinatown community and the Chinese folks are respected. You are a great neighborhood. You are home and host to one of the best and busiest hospitals right here in Chinatown, the Tufts Medical Center. You have great restaurants, hotels, you abut the theater district. You're a big part of the heart of the downtown, and we want to make sure that you're respected and that treated fairly by the MBTA. So I'm pledging the support of my office to work with the mayor and council president in partnership, I think, with the MBTA to make sure that we get this right. I'm sure that we're expecting maybe a little bit bumpy road, no pun intended, the first couple of days of the 30-day shutdown, but let's make sure that we're seizing that moment, that first, the first 6, 8, 10 hours are critical, the first 24 hours are critical to make those adjustments and adapt to whatever changes are needed to make sure that folks in this community are able to get to where they need to get, folks that are visiting, tourists alike, as well as those that need to get medical care at the hospital, and folks that want to come down to spend their hard-earned money on in the restaurants and the shops here in Chinatown. So it's all part of making sure that Chinatown keeps moving forward, and that economic opportunity continues to flow, but that we're making sure that it's done quickly and safely, and that's through partnerships. If you think about Boston's success stories, it's about partnerships, and Mayor Wu will be leading the charge here in the city. Our Governor Baker of the Commonwealth, working with the MBTA, and know that we're all in this together, and we're all going to work together to try to make sure that these 30 days go as quickly as possible, but make sure that we adjust as we need to over the 30 days. And that said, I don't know who's up next. I don't know if it's the chief or what.
Everyone good? Yep. Mayor, could you just talk about just how important it was to hold this community meeting here tonight?
Yeah, I'm really grateful to everyone for coming out, because we are just days away now from one of the biggest disruptions that the T and our region has experienced, and there's still a lot of folks who don't know about it yet. So we're kind of racing against the clock to get the word out, finalize all the plans, and just remind everyone that we will need everyone's patience, especially the first couple days. It will be a little bit of an adjustment as everyone's figuring out those schedules, but the city is working overtime 24 hours a day, basically, in collaboration with the MBTA and with our partners at the state to make sure that we can minimize the disruption that people feel.
Mayor, the T is adding some service. Can you elaborate on what they're doing specifically so people here know?
Yep, so we're very grateful that they've announced tonight that they'll be adding an additional shuttle bus stop in Chinatown. And so residents here, as well as folks trying to come to the neighborhood and access Tufts Medical Center, the schools here. Some of the details are still being worked out, but this community is seen and heard and needs to be part of the planning. And so we're very glad that they have responded to the concerns that have been elevated by City Council, the state legislature, and so many of our partners here at the city.
Do you feel like that communication is starting to get across? I know there was concern as recently as this afternoon about people who speak other languages than English understanding what's coming on Friday.
Yeah, the city has had multiple briefing sessions and are working through all of our community partners, those serving immigrant communities, those who are connected to multilingual media as well. We've hosted folks at City Hall for multiple sessions. I don't know how many sessions Yasha has done, and being out in the community here. And so this is going to be rough for everyone, not just Orange Line riders, but everyone looking to use public transit or get around. But I want to make sure people know it's not as if the Orange Line is shutting down and you're on your own. There is alternative service that is going to take you to every stop that you need to get to, and free commuter rail for anyone getting on a station in Boston or in the surrounding area, as well as additional bus priority to speed up the routes of some of the other buses that are running along parallel spots as well.
Can I ask you one other question? A lot of the pitch has been if you can consider riding a bike or walking. And then at the same time, DCR is planning on doing rolling shutdowns of the Southwest Corridor bike lane.
We've had some conversations with them. Our chief reached out today, and they are adjusting some of those plans. Do you want to add more about that, Andrew?
Yeah, I think DCR will be releasing an updated statement about what they're intending to do. Our understanding at this point, though, is that they're looking to make some improvements on the pathways to smooth out the path for people who are using that as an alternative to the Orange Line. But we'll be holding on heavy construction work that requires extensive detours until after the shutdown is complete. But we are working really closely with them to make sure all the other options are available to people.
And Mayor Wu, as an Orange Line rider yourself, what are your plans for the next month?
I'm going to be in the thick of it with everyone else. And so on Monday, I will probably take the shuttle bus route just to see how that's going. Tuesday, I'll try to mix it up and go in on the commuter rail to make sure that that feels smooth and there's not too much crowding. I'll bike, I'll take some of the other bus routes as well, but I intend to be there monitoring what's happening from the ground so that we can keep getting those adjustments just day by day to make it a little bit better. And I want to make sure that Chairman Erin Michael gets to say a few words too.
No, I'm just thankful that there has been some movement on this. Thank the mayor, thank the councilor, all of our partners in government that have been working towards making sure that the Chinatown voice is heard. Today was obviously a good step. I'm still trying to get all the details, I think, as we all are, on exactly what that is. But certainly we're making progress because some certain populations, particularly our immigrant populations, are going to be using these services, are going to be affected by losing these services the most. And so certainly this was a dramatic piece that we had to kind of iron out, and thankfully that we're getting to a good place right now. So I'm thankful to the mayor for all her work.
Now, speaking of, Mr. Ed Flynn also mentioned that he's working with your office as well to try to disseminate information, not just online. A lot of folks are seniors. They don't use the internet as proficiently. What is the plan for spreading that communication, not just to the Chinese-speaking community? We've got Haitians and Spanish speakers. Tell us what's the plan for that in terms of at least within the city.
Yeah, over the course of this last week, we had all of our partners representing every possible community in Boston in City Hall, going through a similar briefing of all of the alternatives, all the information, so that our media partners in languages other than English could also help spread the word. We have a flyer that the city has created in 11 different languages that outline all of the alternatives. Our neighborhood services team members will be on the ground passing out those flyers and have already been posting them and working with community groups to get that out into the world. And we just ask everyone to take the time, if you can, plan ahead a little bit. The options are going to be new, whether it's you've never taken commuter rail before because it's usually more expensive and now it will be free, or whether you're going to try a different type of bus route. If you just remember to spend a little time this weekend doing that research, going over the flyer, going through the rider's guide that's available from the MBTA, map it out. It is different, but we hope that with all the work that's gone into creating new alternatives and options, that there will be other ways to get to where you need to go.
Mayor, are there any plans to add signage in other languages at the specific stops themselves?
Yes, and so there will be sandwich boards. There will be sandwich boards at each subway stop, or at each shuttle bus stop. There will be sandwich boards in different languages, as well as staff on the ground who can help guide and facilitate folks to the shuttle buses and help get their bearings. We are also making a specific push for the start of school, and to have staff members specifically looking for and helping to guide students as we get into the later part of the shutdown that overlaps with the beginning of the school year, so our young people and educators also have a clear sense of what the options are and where to go.
Could I add one more challenge? Have you do it in Spanish for Telemundo for
For sure.
Is that okay?
About
so
Chinatown
much.
in particular, or just in general?
Just in general, and yeah, also.
Management Center in the city. We are a day away from the beginning of a 30-day shutdown of the Orange Line trains and the alternative service that the city of Boston has been working very hard with neighboring municipalities and the MBTA to stand up in record time to make sure that there are options available for all of our residents and commuters who need to get where they're trying to go as fall starts and with the beginning of the school year as well. This has been an all hands on deck, cross-departmental effort for the city of Boston, and I'm so grateful to all of our teams, some of the cabinets who are represented here, for really ensuring that we could provide additional support on top of what the MBTA has been doing to reach out to our residents, to provide that multilingual information and feedback and getting folks' ideas, as well as ensuring that the routes that are running on Boston streets above ground as alternatives will be as smooth as possible. Just last night, the MBTA also announced that they're adding an additional Chinatown shuttle bus stop for the SL4, making it a Silver Line 4 route, making an additional stop in Chinatown as one more measure to be responsive to our residents' concerns about how this shutdown will impact their daily lives and particularly access to the necessities in their lives. Some of the key work that has been happening across the city, represented by our cabinet chiefs. You'll hear shortly from our Chief of Streets, Yasha Franklin Hodge, on the volumes of work that his team, amazing team, have been doing. They're gathered right on the other side of this. Our Chief of Equity and Inclusion, Maria Angelis Luis Cervera, has been overseeing efforts through her cabinet to really engage all of our community members as well. We hosted an information session and conversation with immigrant serving organizations and community leaders, including multilingual media, in City Hall to walk through all of the alternatives and the details. We have had Zoom sessions with community members. We have had neighborhood sessions, for example, in Chinatown, and I want to thank them for all that they're doing to ensure that we can provide the necessary details so people can plan out how they will get around. Our community engagement cabinet, led by Chief Brianna Malore, has been hard at work already. They are distributing a flyer in 11 different languages that summarizes the alternatives available. They've been engaging residents in all of our neighborhoods and will be on the ground throughout this shutdown to help answer questions and facilitate people getting to their destinations and understanding what the options are. And our Chief of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion, Shugan Idowu, has been an incredible leader in working very closely with our business community on the particular impacts that our small and large businesses will be experiencing. And I want to thank Jim Rooney and the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce for being such a strong partner. They have worked very closely with Chief Idowu and have stood up their own website with particular information for their membership and have been facilitating conversations. We've been on many Zoom and in-person meetings with them as well. Some of what you'll hear in a little bit really describe give some detail to the city's role in helping to smooth the alternatives during this shutdown. We have been working hard to ensure that the shuttle buses have enough space to load and unload, particularly in key stops. For example, near Back Bay Station, where some of us got on the test run shuttle bus to ride the southern route from Forest Hills to Copley Station. There will be some significant changes that have already started to be marked on the ground. A bus-only lane so that the buses have the most room and speed to be able to get started on their routes, as well as some bus-only areas that will ensure that these shuttle buses don't get stuck in as much traffic as usually would be experienced. We've also been working with our partners to ensure that there are other options. In addition, Blue Bikes will be offering 30-day free passes where any ride up to 45 minutes will be free. And we are very thankful for this additional option, as well as DCR and others for ensuring that the pathways and Southwest Corridor in particular will be accessible and smoothed out, but not disrupted or impacted during the bulk of the shutdown. The commuter rail will be effectively free for residents as well. Anyone who can show a Charlie card will be able to board for free at the stop stations that are in Zone 1A, Zone 1, or Zone 2. That includes every single station within the city of Boston. And we will be providing free Charlie cards for anyone who needs it. Our libraries have free cards, and our neighborhood services teams will have them as well. Again, you just need the policy to board the commuter rail during the shutdown within the city of Boston stations. It's just to show the card. It does not need to be loaded with funds. It will not be charged. And so that is likely the best bet for many folks who are trying to commute from Forest Hills, for example, to downtown. Hop on that commuter rail from Forest Hills to get out either at Back Bay, Ruggles, or South Station. The frequency will be twice the usual pickup, and so every 30 minutes there will be a train coming through at Forest Hills, and others in the other direction coming from the north of the city as well. Let me make sure I covered everything here. Okay, so here's a key website. If you have other questions or want to just get an overview of the options that are available, we have our city website at boston.gov/orangeline, or you can call 311 for information on that. The website is available in 11 different languages. And finally, in English, we do just want to emphasize that this is going to be a particularly impactful experience for our students who are coming back to school, and the last week of this shutdown overlapping with the first week of Boston Public Schools' new school year. And so BPS has been working to ensure that our students, families, teachers, and staff can get to school, can plan out their routes, can see what is happening. BPS has secured 5,000 Charlie cards free for students and families, loaded with 7-day passes, so that families can go with their students and map out, try out these alternative routes. If you're going to consider taking a different bus route to school or going on the commuter rail, even ahead of the shutdown, these 7-day passes are available for everyone to just go a couple times, try different ways, see what feels most comfortable. As the school year starts, students arriving late because of transportation issues and in general will not be penalized, and we will provide more updates on the BPS sides as we get closer to the start of school as well. I want to mention something that I forgot that I know Chief Idowu will jump in on as well. One major part of the conversation between the City of Boston and our business community partners is to not just be flexible for your workforce that is going to be impacted, whether or not they're directly on the Orange Line or coming in a different way and facing more delays or more traffic and congestion. Please ensure that you're not penalizing any of your workforce for coming in late or not being able to make it on time, because this will impact every single commuter. That your commute will be affected in some way, even if not directly on the Orange Line. At the City of Boston, we are encouraging, and we have continued the policy of allowing for hybrid work at the discretion of all of our managers here in the city, so that we as a workforce are also trying to model giving that flexibility and allowing for some decongestion of our roads wherever possible. Okay.
Well, so on the first day that the MBTA reached out to us to let us know that they were considering an extended shutdown of the Orange Line, I got very clear, and my team got very clear direction from Mayor Wu. And that was to do everything that we can as a city to support riders and to keep Boston moving. For the reasons that the mayor spoke about, we know that the work that the MBTA has planned is essential to the future of the transit system and to address the delays and the disrepair that plague Orange Line riders on their daily commutes. But we also know that this shutdown is going to be disruptive and it's going to be challenging for the city. So over the last 2 weeks, we have engaged in an unprecedented effort to reconfigure our streets, to boost alternative transportation options, and to help residents and businesses in Boston prepare for the shutdown. So I'm going to go through some of the specific things that we've been doing. We're going to get into a little bit of detail on some of the streets and the changes that are being made. But just to start with, so we're creating 2 transit hubs to facilitate transfers between the Orange Line and the Green Line. Copley Square and Government Center is where we expect to see the highest volume of passengers and shuttle buses. And so we've set aside an extensive amount of curb space in these locations to allow for efficient shuttle bus loading. We've created temporary bus lanes and restricted access along certain segments of street to make sure that the shuttle buses have the space that they need to move. In Copley Square, shuttle buses serving the southern part of the Orange Line will travel down Columbus Ave, loop around Copley Square to make connections to the Back Bay and Copley stations. Dedicated bus lanes have been added on Columbus Ave, Dartmouth Street, Boylston, and Clarendon Streets. Substantial parking restrictions are also in place along all of these streets to allow for safe and accessible loading of buses. The block of Dartmouth Street between St. James and Boylston Street will be closed to general traffic and open only for buses to make sure that they have the space they need to queue and to operate and load passengers. At Government Center, the shuttle buses that are serving both the northern part of the Orange Line and the Union Square branch of the Green Line will all board at Government Center. So dedicated bus lanes have been added on Congress Street, State Street, Court Street, and Cambridge Street. As with Copley, there will be extensive parking restrictions on all of these streets. In addition, the block of State Street between Congress Street and Washington Street will be closed to general traffic. Through traffic coming up State Street will be diverted, and only buses will be allowed to make the right turn from Congress Street onto State Street. These changes will provide the necessary space for 2 separate shuttle bus fleets and routes to be served from this one location. At both locations, we will ensure that there is adequate sidewalk space for people to wait, and the city is in the process of procuring tents to help make sure that there is shelter available to people in the event of inclement weather. In addition to our transit hubs, we are making changes all along the shuttle routes and on our streets. On the northern route, to speed the movement of shuttles, we're working with MassDOT to implement bus priority lanes on the Gilmore Bridge, Rutherford Ave, and in Sullivan Square. In the North Station area, we'll be implementing, likely next week, dedicated lanes and parking along Lomasney Way, Martha Road, Nashua Street. On the southern route in JP, the shuttles will be traveling along streets that typically do not carry a large volume of bus traffic. So this includes Lamartine, Amory Street, and Williams Street. So we're making various small changes at intersections along these streets to make sure that these 45-foot long shuttles can safely make turns and don't get blocked by parked cars or other obstructions. To make this possible, we will be temporarily removing some parking spaces to widen these intersections. Our Parks Department is also reviewing a list of places where we have trees that may be low-hanging and interfere with the shuttle buses, and is accelerating tree trimming along this route. In some spots, there may be turn restrictions added to reduce the amount of general traffic that may interfere with the shuttle buses. So we may be diverting other cars onto alternate routes to stay out of the way of the shuttles. Washington Street northbound between the Arborway and Williams Street will be closed to general traffic to allow buses to move through that congested area. We're also evaluating Tremont Street and Columbus Ave between Jackson Square and Ruggles for a potential bus priority lane to be added. Our signals team will be conducting real-time monitoring of the traffic flow along the shuttle route here in the Traffic Management Center. And they are prepared to make signal timing adjustments throughout the shutdown to prioritize shuttle bus movements. Along the shuttle routes, our city's Disabilities Commission has conducted an accessibility review of sidewalks and loading areas for all of the shuttle stops to identify any conditions that would pose a hazard for people with physical or sensory disabilities. Since the beginning of the week, the Public Works Department has been out making repairs at key locations, replacing bricks, smoothing sidewalks, to make sure that the shuttle buses are in fact accessible for all. We are working closely with our public safety agencies. The Boston Police Department has been heavily involved in the planning for this shutdown. They're prepared to deploy additional personnel, especially at intersections where we need to make sure that there are people on the ground to ensure safety for all road users and to help speed shuttle bus movements through those intersections. The MBTA Police Department, in coordination with Boston Police, will also be adding extra personnel at the transit hubs and along the route. The Boston Transportation Department will be enforcing parking restrictions and issuing violations to vehicles stopped in bus-only areas. If necessary, BTD will facilitate towing of vehicles to ensure that shuttle buses can continue to move. As the mayor said, we are working to make biking accessible to more people. The publicly owned Blue Bike system will offer free 30-day passes beginning tomorrow. We're also adding capacity to Blue Bikes by expanding docks and adding valet services at key transit locations so that there are always bikes available and always a place to leave a bike. We're also putting in place some pop-up bike lanes. These are several locations, mostly downtown, but we're specifically targeting places where there's concern about potential for conflict between bikes and shuttle buses to make sure that they stay separated on the road. And next week, we expect to install additional bike parking corrals downtown to support commuters. Several advocacy and community-based organizations are doing group rides and convoys to help less experienced riders get comfortable on a bike and to help make sure that people stay safe. And as the mayor alluded to, in contrary to some of the reports we heard yesterday, the Southwest Corridor path will be open throughout the shutdown. I was out there, I was riding on it this morning, and DCR was already making repairs and smoothing out pavement. So we hope that this will be a smoother ride for people who do choose to bike on that route. The city has launched a website, as the mayor said, to keep people informed, boston.gov/orangeline. These are resources intended to supplement the material that's being provided by the MBTA. This includes the flyer that the mayor mentioned, which is now, as of this morning, translated into 12 languages and is being distributed in dozens of locations throughout the community, including community centers and via some of our partner organizations. The website also contains an accessibility guide specifically for people with disabilities to help them successfully navigate the shutdown. The city's Equity Cabinet and Office of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion have convened numerous briefings for business organizations, for healthcare organizations, higher ed, for our community-based organizations that serve immigrants, for residents, to help people understand what's happening, to give them a chance to ask questions and to give feedback to the city and to the MBTA. And our Office of Neighborhood Services will have teams in the field in the initial days of the shutdown at stations to help residents navigate the changes and find their way to where they're going to supplement the navigation support that the MBTA will be providing. And our 311 team has resources available to them to make sure that they can answer any resident questions that they receive. Lastly, I want to talk about how we will be working during the shutdown. Our work does not end when the shutdown begins. All the things I've described have come together extraordinarily quickly, and there will be lots more to do in the coming weeks. We will monitor what's happening on the ground, what's working, what's not, and we will adapt. To do this, we're establishing strong ongoing communication with the MBTA, Mass DOT, our public safety agencies, and surrounding communities. MBTA staff will be embedded here in the Traffic Management Center throughout the shutdown, and the Boston Transportation Department will have staff located at the Mass DOT Operations Center. The city team has demonstrated extraordinary focus and agility to get us where we are in such a short period of time. Many of my team members are here, and I'm immensely grateful for the incredible work that they have put in to make this possible. We will stay nimble, and we will continue to work throughout the shutdown to do everything that we can. And I will just end by saying this. We know that this month is going to be challenging, but if there's one thing that I want everyone in Boston to hear, it's that we have your back, we will get through this, and we will have a stronger transportation system when this is done. Thank you.
Before I turn it over to my two incredible council colleagues, I want to make sure to, first of all, thank and also turn the microphone over to Commissioner Kristen McCosh, our Commissioner for the Mayor's Commission for Persons with Disabilities. Commissioner McCosh has been working incredibly hard to ensure that our residents with disabilities are centered in the planning processes. We know that the MBTA system, even before this, has significant accessibility challenges that need to be resolved, and this additional wrinkle and set of disruption for the commute makes it all the more challenging. And so all of the shuttle buses that are substituting for the Orange Line stops are accessible, but it is a complicated process, and I want to just make sure Commissioner McCosh can say a few words about the alternatives, the vans, the ride that will still be present as well.
Thank you, Mayor Wu. So as the mayor said, it's a complex situation when you're trying to deal with people who have physical and sensory disabilities. Our work is broken down into 3 basic areas. First of all, we're working closely with the MBTA. They have a dedicated office of system-wide accessibility that deals with access on the fixed route system. That's buses, trains, and the ferry. So we've always had a close relationship with them, but we've been working with them basically on a daily basis to ensure that the shuttle buses are accessible, that the vans are accessible. They will have 20 vans located at each Orange Line station, which will transport people with disabilities who do not use the coach buses. Even though the coach buses are accessible, they present unique challenges to people in wheelchairs and scooters because they have a mechanical lift, which is difficult to navigate, and they have a tight space to secure a wheelchair on the back. So that's our work ongoing with the T. As Chief Franklin Hodge said, we'll be very nimble. We'll be changing plans as we hear about complaints and stay in touch with the T very closely. Secondly, we work very closely with our partners in City Hall. We're working with the Public Works Department, BTD, Office of Neighborhood Services to make sure that we're responding to any issues that we hear. Our staff has walked the shuttle routes to see that the bus stops will be compliant, will be level, have level landings, and the sidewalks are in good shape. Some of you may have seen that Public Works has already been out repairing sidewalks on the routes to maintain accessible routes for people with disabilities. And third, we're working closely with the disability community through outreach and engagement. We have an accessibility guide that's available on boston.com/orangeline. So that's it. We'll stay in touch with the community and our partners and keep everybody moving throughout the shutdown.
Great. I'll hand it over to Councilors Bach and Laura.
Hello everyone, I'm Kenzie Bach. I represent District 8, which runs from Mission Hill through the West End. So enormous impacts on my district for this closure, and I just wanted to say a couple of things from the District 8 perspective. One is just really to thank the BTD and the whole cross-departmental city team that's been working so hard on figuring out better resolutions for our residents and our businesses in this crisis. They've been incredibly responsive, and there's a million small things that have come up and that, as the chief said, are going to continue to come up. So I know that we're all going to be working on this as a work in progress. I really want to thank our businesses in places like the Back Bay and the West End in my district who are impacted by the shuttle routes that are going down. I think everyone understands that moving commuters and residents through the city is essential for business operations, but a lot of our businesses are being flexible in this moment, and so just want to thank them and also thank our residents and stress the fact that, to the accessibility point that the chief just raised, it's also really important in this process that pedestrians be thought about. And another thing that I really appreciate the team doing is thinking about where our shuttle routes are. Places like Copley Square, Government Center, North Station, these are also major pedestrian hubs. And so I feel confident that the BTD team and our MBTA folks are well aware that we have to keep crosswalks clear and make sure that it's easy for our pedestrians to get around the city as well. So just remembering that we have so many different modes of travel that are intersecting here: pedestrians, bicycles, our shuttles, and the team's really been thinking about all of them. And then for my district specifically, I just wanted to use this opportunity to stress for folks in Mission Hill that the Mission Hill Link, our community bus service that runs 10:30 to 6:30 Monday to Friday, is free for the duration of the shutdown. So the great advantage of that is that this is a shuttle that's already accessible, that gets many of our folks with accessibility needs around the hill, across the steep gradient. But in this specific situation, it also means that you can ride that from any place in Mission Hill to Brigham Circle to get on the Green Line, or to Ruggles to get on commuter rail. So in that triangle kind of between the Green and the Orange Line, that's another specific solution for folks out in Mission Hill and the surrounding Roxbury JP area. So just wanted to stress for people that the link is free throughout this month, and again, express my thanks to the whole team and say that I think everyone on the council, Councilor Laura and I are here, but everyone on the council is very focused on this issue, and we also want to be conduits for things that you see that maybe aren't working, and help make sure that we can get through this as well as possible together. So thank you, and I'll turn it over to my colleague, Councilor Laura.
Thank you, Councilor Bach, and thank you, everyone. My name is Kendra Lara, and I represent District 6, which includes West Roxbury, Jamaica Plain, Eggleston Square, and Precinct in Rosendale as well. First, I just want to thank the mayor and her team for all of the work that they've been doing. I think that what we've seen in the last few weeks has been nothing short of what Chief Yasha described as heroic acts by the City Hall staff and also some of the MBTA staff that have been supporting us during this time. In spite of those heroic acts, what we're going to see, particularly in District 6, is that with the closure of the orange line and the closure of the green line, our entire district is going to be pretty much blacked out and disconnected from downtown. And in addition to all of our efforts, and in spite of those efforts, we're going to be experiencing an information gap for people who are maybe not online, folks whose first language is not English, and for seniors. And so in our office, our goal for the past few weeks has been to do work to close that information gap as much as possible. So on Friday morning, our staff and our volunteers are going to be along the Washington Street route in West Roxbury to make sure that all the information that the City of Boston has been made available is not only posted on all the bus stops, but we're talking to the bus riders that are riding the buses into Forest Hills. On Friday at 6 p.m. at the Stony Brook T Station, my office is going to be hosting a community forum and a town hall about the Orange Line, where people from the neighborhood can join us to come and ask questions and learn about the alternate routes that are available to them during the closure. On Saturday morning, our office and our volunteers are going to be knocking on 1,000 doors in Jamaica Plain and Eggleston Square to make sure that we are reaching as many constituents as possible and making sure that they have access to all of the information that the city has made available to them. Our hope is that we can continue to update a travel guide that we are putting together that's going to be available online as time goes. And our staff and our volunteers are going to be present during rush hour from 7 a.m., 9 a.m., and from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. at Forest Hills, Green Street, Stony Brook, and Jackson Square during the first week of the closure as well. So we are doing everything possible to make sure that we're closing this information gap, that we're making ourselves available to our constituents. Our office is also going to be passing out Charlie cards. And one of the things that we've learned, particularly with the COVID-19 pandemic and these type of crises, is that we are all each other's responsibility. And although the city has gone to great lengths to make sure that we're taking care of our constituents, my ask and my invitation from all of our constituents is that you make your neighbors your responsibility during this time as well. So thank you.
Questions?
Mayor, a week ago you said, in answer to a question, you did believe it would be chaos. A week later, do you still feel that way?
So, just to clarify, the original question that was asked by the incomparable Karen Riegel was, how do you avoid chaos? And it will be impossible to avoid chaos altogether. Just the mere fact that this is a time of year when people are coming back to new routines in the fall, going back in person to work, getting started with school, adding this extra layer of disruption and uncertainty will mean that people's lives will be unpredictable, especially for the first few days as we're all trying to sort out what the schedules are, what the options are. I feel so grateful to our team that we have done everything possible, looked at every single little detail along each of these routes to make it as smooth as possible and to reduce that level of chaos and disruption for our residents. There is still more work to do, as you heard our chief say. So we're going to continue to be on the ground and ensure that I'll be on the shuttle buses, I'll be on the commuter rail, I'll be riding my bike. So every little detail that we see pop up that might not have been able to be planned for and predicted, that we can still incorporate into the plans and adjust them in real time as well.
You mentioned the dedicated bus lanes. I assume those are the ones the city has set up on city roads. You mentioned others by Sullivan Square that you're still waiting on the state for. Is that frustrating? How many state roads are we looking at that we still don't have bus lanes set up on in the city of Boston?
So I'll ask Yasha to jump in a lot more expertise and detail, but from day one, a big priority of the city in terms of supporting this shutdown to be able to make major fixes has been to think about how we can do everything within our municipal power to smooth the alternatives. The shuttle buses will be one of the main sets of alternatives to get to the stops along the way. And those shuttle buses run on city roads, and whatever we can do to ensure smooth boarding and Where's the opposite of boarding? Offloading? Okay.
Getting off.
Getting off.
Alighting.
Okay. Whatever we can do. Just the part. Whatever we can do to ensure that people can get on and off those shuttle buses smoothly. They know which buses to get on, that there's staff on the ground, and that the buses can then move fast on our city streets and the ones that are state roads, but within the city of Boston. That has been a big part of the BTD, Boston Transportation Department's time and planning. And so some of these are actually for routes that are not shuttle buses in particular either. For example, the 39 bus is a route that runs through JP along a parallel route to some of the stops, and there's going to be additional priority for that bus route as well, because we do expect and hope that people will seek that as an alternative in addition.
Are you looking to make these bus lanes permanent to any extent?
I would just add to your question on the relationship with the state. So as the mayor said, almost every one of the routes, the streets that the shuttle routes will be on is a city street, including Rutherford Ave and Sullivan Square. Those are actually city streets. We have 4 different design consultants and 2 different pavement marking and road safety contractors right now who are working to deploy some of the things that I talked about as quickly as they can. That is sort of all the capacity that the city has to do this work, and we are putting it all in to make this shutdown successful. In the case of Rutherford Ave and Sullivan Square, MassDOT has additional resources that they can bring to bear. They will be striping the Gilmore Bridge, which is theirs, and we've actually asked them to continue that work on our behalf onto Rutherford Ave and into Sullivan Square to make sure that there's a continuous bus priority route there.
But will
So
that
this-
be ready by tomorrow night?
I don't have an exact answer on that segment. I know that we were trying to line up the contractors. The plans were in going back and forth in email yesterday. So certainly we're going to do everything we can to get things in the ground before the shutdown starts, but there will be things that happen next week. It's kind of a rolling work in progress, but we are working in close partnership and bringing all the resources we can muster and our partner agencies can muster to make this happen.
Yeah, so are you looking to make
Sorry, I
these
just want to
bus
add one
lanes
last point
permanent?
in this. I'm so sorry, and I promise, Sean, we will get to your question. Just a reminder, the bus priority and all the work that the city has been doing to ensure that we are making changes to our streets to make this more possible. It's a reminder that even drivers who don't usually take the T, your commutes will be affected as well. And so we really just want to ask everyone to be vigilant, pay attention to the roads, watch for cyclists who might be more prominent and in more numbers as people are seeking alternatives. Your usual drive might be affected because maybe there's a bus lane now that you should avoid and create space for those buses. And so much of whether a bus lane works is if it's clear for the bus to run down. And so we really need everyone to avoid those lanes, do not park in them. We will be enforcing and ticketing and towing. And so that is very important to be able to move the hundreds of thousands of commuters who are going to be looking for alternatives. Those bus lanes are key.
And so is the goal to make some of these permanent after the fact with the, you mentioned pop-up bike lanes and this variety of bus lanes?
So I'll give an example by Copley where everything that we do as a city, we are collecting data, we're collecting feedback from residents, and we're learning what works and what doesn't work. One major feature of letting the buses move quickly from Copley, where one of the major hubs, as you heard, is that the area, the street, is it Boylston? No, Dartmouth, between the library and the plaza. Dartmouth, thank you, Councilor. Dartmouth. Dartmouth between St. James and Boylston, the street right in front of the Copley Library, between the library and the plaza, between Copley Square, is going to be closed to vehicular traffic, and so that buses have a smooth route to run down. We know that that is possible and feasible because the city tested that out as a pilot for 10 days earlier in the summer, just to see what would happen if we created public space and allowed for more activity. And it turns out that the numbers that we collected from that pilot have given us confidence that this would actually be very helpful for buses to run down and would not create additional major traffic impacts. And so we're going to keep studying and measuring as we go in terms of these bus lanes and the changes that are being implemented. Some of them may stick, and if we have further conversations with community members, some of them will just be to allow for loading and getting off of these buses.
How many parking spaces are you taking away?
I don't think we have an exact count on that right now. There's a number in the Back Bay, in particular along that loop around Copley Square. In neighborhoods, if we're looking at JP, for example, this will likely be a very small number specifically at intersections. So the intersection of Lamartine and Boylston Street, for example, in JP, where there will be a large number of shuttle buses turning by the Stony Brook station, we know we're going to have to take out 3 spaces at that intersection to widen it enough for the buses to be able to safely make the turn. We're really looking at this as what are the requirements of the shuttle bus to operate efficiently? We are giving the shuttle buses priority when it comes to curb space and street space, because we know if we don't do that, people will not be able to move in the city. But we're certainly trying to minimize the impacts that it has to other road users where
What about
that's possible.
trucks and deliveries for all the small businesses that exist? Just about every neighborhood you're talking about. Have you had conversations with them, and what are their concerns?
We have, and it's moving very quickly, but all of the places where we're doing bus priority, there are alternate locations for loading. We actually made some changes across from Copley Square to add additional loading space. Out here by City Hall, we have the New England Center and Home for Veterans, who's losing some of the parking right in front of their facility. They are getting additional parking space that has been signed and set up exclusively for them across the street on Court Square. So we're looking at all of this as we go and making sure that we have alternatives in place for people so that they can continue to do business.
Just following up on the outreach to the business community, Chief Irugu has been conducting a lot of these listening sessions, so I'm sure he has insight.
Sure. So good morning, Shigan Irugu, Chief of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion. Really important question about the impact on small businesses. And actually, according to the BPDA, there are around 16,000 Boston small businesses within a half-mile radius of the Orange Line stops here in the city. And so some of the work that we've been doing, in addition to this outreach through our main streets, led by Alicia Porceno, who's our Director of Small Business, engaging with community groups on the ground through our business managers, talking directly with businesses, not just the delivery zones that are going to be impacted, we're also talking about getting their employees to work, the owners themselves getting to work, talking about a reduction of foot traffic in the area. But taking all these into account, what we're grateful for is the partnership with groups like Small Business Strong, led by Liz Boston, Karen Kelleher, as well as the Coalition for an Equitable Economy, hundreds of service providers to small businesses that we're going to be working with on a daily basis throughout this month to provide additional resources, whether it's technical assistance, marketing, and all other types of services to make sure that they survive through this shutdown.
¿Está de acuerdo usted como la MBTA ha manejado el tema de informarle a la comunidad hispana, especialmente porque en las estaciones no hay letreros en español todavía? Muchas personas no hablan inglés, están confundidas, la comunidad hispana está confundida aquí en Boston. ¿Qué mensaje usted les envía a ellos?
Sí, esa situación es muy difícil para todos los residentes, pero especialmente para los pasajeros que no tienen otra manera de transportación y que dependen en el transporte público. Entonces, el equipo municipal aquí y con líderes en el Consejo Municipal van a continuar la comunicación con todos los residentes. Tenemos información y materiales en 12 lenguas ahora y teníamos las sesiones informativas con todos los líderes de organizaciones que trabajan, que sirven comunidades inmigrantes y otros de lenguas no, de inglés, pero es una experiencia muy difícil para las semanas próximas y entonces necesitamos la continuación de colaboración y comunicación porque sí hay detalles que pueden aumentar los esfuerzos de la ciudad y MBTA. Necesitamos la comunicación en el tiempo real actualmente para implementar y para continuar la aumentación.
Muchas gracias. Quiero responder la pregunta un poco. Sabemos que en este momento va a haber una brecha de información para la comunidad latina. Y por eso nuestra oficina está haciendo todo lo que podamos para asegurarnos de que estamos hablando con la comunidad latina donde ellos se encuentran. Entonces estamos tocando puertas, estamos llamándolos a sus casas, nos estamos en las paradas de guagua en West Roxbury, también en Jamaica Plain, para hablar con las personas. Nosotros en nuestra oficina hablamos inglés y español y estamos haciendo todo lo posible para asegurarnos de que esa información le está llegando a la comunidad latina. Vamos el viernes en la noche a las 6 p.m. hasta las 7:30. Vamos a tener un foro para la comunidad en la estación de tren en Stony Brook. Va a estar en inglés y en español también. Yo como la concejala hablo español también. Mis empleados en la oficina también pueden ayudar a las personas. Si hay alguna pregunta, por favor, llámenos. Pero también estamos contando con la comunidad latina. Estamos contando con ustedes para que reporten la información, para que hagan las preguntas y para que vengan y se aseguren de que la información está llegando en todos los lugares a la comunidad latina.
How much are these changes going to cost the city?
También quiero repetir en español que el autobús de la comunidad Mission Hill Link en Mission Hill no cuesta nada este mes durante las cierre de la línea naranja. Entonces, la gente que vive en el barrio de Alice Taylor y Mission Main se puede utilizar este autobús hasta el línea E en verde o a Ruggles, donde se puede utilizar la línea violeta, el commuter rail, que también no hay que pagar, solamente hay que mostrar la tarjeta Charlie Card y se puede ir al centro sin pagar. Entonces hay muchos recursos muy importantes para nuestra gente que se habla en español. Y la última cosa que tengo que repetir es que en el sitio de web de la ciudad, Boston, boston.gov/ORANGELINE. En este sitio hay toda la información, todas las detalles pequeñas en español traducido por la ciudad. Entonces, este es muy importante trabajo que nuestro equipo aquí en la ciudad de Boston ha hecho para las ciudadanos y residentes que se hablan español.
And the team has already put out signs saying it's going to start in 20 seconds.
Take a look at the Traffic Management Center with us and then follow up separately on questions. We're doing the best that we can on the city side to make sure that we can supplement the outreach, but it's been an incredibly short time frame and very short notice.
But Mayor, how would you grade the rollout if these signs are incorrect the day before?
The signage is, this is why we need all of your help in getting the word out. I know the team has a lot that they're working on, and for all that we're doing, planning out the above ground shuttling, they're additionally planning out all the below ground repairs and the timing and actually being able to deliver on eliminating slow zones and updating the signal infrastructure and all of that. So this is quite confusing when residents still see this, but we hope that our efforts to spread the word and partner with different organizations are helping to fill some of those gaps.
For Chinatown, was the change that they made, did that allay some of your and Councilor Flynn's fears, or are there still a lot of problems in that area?
We're still working, but yesterday's announcement was a big step forward, that there will be a dedicated stop, a new additional stop that will serve residents who, especially if they're seniors and walking those extra blocks in potential heat makes a big difference, and so this was definitely a big step forward.
How bad is it going to be for drivers when Boston traffic is already always wonderful, and then you take more drivers, fewer lanes?
The reality is this is going to impact everyone who uses the roads, whether they're on a shuttle bus, whether they're driving. I think our message to people who are looking at how to get around is, take advantage of the transit options that are there. There is a way to get everywhere you're going on transit. We do not encourage people to drive as an alternative to transit. One full Orange Line train, if you took all those people and put them in cars, that would be a line of traffic 4 miles long. We do not have space on our roads for that, so we need people to take advantage of all the different options that are there. Look at the commuter rail, look at the bus, use the trip planner tools that the MBTA is making available to find an alternate route that keeps you on transit.
And what was the answer to Danny's question about how much is this going to cost?
We are still working on tallying that up. This is, our first focus has been on doing all the things that need to happen for the city to function during this shutdown. This is the right thing to do. We are keeping track of what it costs, and we will be having conversations with the MBTA and the state about what can be reimbursed.
Got any numbers on city workers working remote?
How many will be working remote? We are, so over the last couple of months, we have created protocol for how to sort of set in motion a hybrid work schedule, whether it was because of a COVID surge or other situations. And so that basically has been revived, and each department, each manager within the infrastructure is familiar with how to implement that.
So you already have a number then?
And so, it's going to depend on sort of who's in at what times, and we don't kind of keep a specific head count.
Yeah.
But the city's plans are not just limited to Orange Line riders. So the hybrid policy that we are reviving is for the entire workforce, given still being able to fulfill our constituent responsibilities and all of that.
My last question, details, roughly traffic details and then emergency vehicle access.
Yeah, so I don't have an exact count on the number of police details. Boston Police Department is putting together their operations plan. It will be a mix of details and regular shift assignments of people working on these along these routes. And a lot of it's going to be very dependent on facts on the ground. There are places that need extra attention. Boston Police Department is making the resources available to ensure that they get it. Every single bus lane, every place that says bus only is also an emergency vehicle lane. So this is part of our goal with creating all these bus lanes, is certainly to speed shuttle buses and to allow them to move in the city, but also to make sure that emergency vehicles can get where they're going and, if necessary, bypass traffic.
Mayor, you put people to the website, but the diversion link on the Google Maps, it doesn't work. You hit it and it says, try
Some of the
again.
links not
We'll fix that.
Yeah, we'll fix that. That was posted less than an hour ago, and there will be a technical glitch. We'll get it fixed, and we'll have the map.
Are we
All right,
ready?
thank you, everyone.
Are we ready for
We
this?
have another press conference at
We're not ready
2:30.
for something this scale, but we are as prepared as we could be with all of the mitigation measures, all the planning. We are as ready as we could be, but this is a situation that ideally we never would have been in to start with.